Imagine a world with no cold calling. A world where companies don't sell your data to other companies who want to pester you. At G4 Claims, we don't cold call and we don't buy a single lead from data companies. Oh, and if you're due any compensation from your car accident, you pay nothing to us at all. For full accident management support, including motor replacement, repairs and personal injury compensation claims, just search G4 Claims today. For help the way you want it.
Welcome to this week's episode of the DW podcast. I am joined by musician Stuart Braithwaite. Thanks very much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
It's funny, before I was coming on here, I was thinking I always, I'm joined by, a member of Mogwai, and I feel that, I shouldn't put you on the spot here, but I feel that I'm always defining people by what they do as a job, and I don't really think that's fair. So, who is Stuart Braithwaite? What's the story?
No, I'm just the guy from Mogwai. I mean that's what I've been doing my whole life. Playing music, playing guitar, so no, I don't mind that.
It is funny though, because people have got these other, backgrounds, like their parents or their husbands or their, dads or wives or mums. And I just feel as if I've been conscious, I'm always saying, oh, this is this musician, or,
Yeah, well, my parents are more interested than me, to be totally honest. My mum was she's retired now, which is a GP, and my dad was Scotland's only telescope maker.
No way.
Yeah, so he was an interesting guy. Died a few years ago, but so sadly he would have given you much better partner than I'm going to, but he's not around anymore, sadly.
Did you pass on many telescopes then? Have you into the stars and the astronomy? Or?
I'm interested in them. There's a few. I've got some binoculars he left me, and there's a bunch of telescopes at my mum's house, but I'm not an expert. I'm not a very scientific person, but I was always interested in it and loved having a look, and it's a cool thing to grow up around, definitely.
That's amazing. How does that come about? Scotland's only one.
I guess the other one's quite. They weren't very good. I mean, I'm guessing there's probably none now, sadly. But his dad worked in a place called Frank's, which was down at Salt Market, which was a kind of. They sold all kind of binoculars, telescopes, all that kind of stuff. So he just took on what his dad did, and I guess he had a lot of different jobs and settled on what he wanted to do, which I guess is what we all kind of aim for, to kind of get up in the morning and do what you actually like doing. Sadly, a lot of folk don't get the chance to,
It seems like that's almost been passed down, through generations of your families, do what you want to do, live your dream.
Yeah, they certainly never gave me any pressure to. I don't know. He always said if I became an accountant, he'd disown me.
That's shocking.
Well, I also can't account, so I was always all right.
You went to make a very good accountant.
No,
that's for sure.
No.
Would that be right in saying you were born in one of the islands before moving to Glasgow? No.
No.
Have I made that up?
I was born in Lanarkshire.
Where are you? It's an island.
It's an island in itself.
I don't know where I got that from.
Well, my mum's from Lewis,
okay.
So that's probably it. Kind of got slightly confused, but no, I was born in Lanark.
What was that like growing up in Lanark?
Lots
of skateboarding, lots of music.
Well, where I grew up isn't quite Lanark. It's kind of in the Clyde Valley, kind of probably about halfway between Lanark and Hamilton.
Sure.
It's nice. Yeah, just went to school in Strathaven, and it was nice. It's a funny one, isn't it? Because when someone asks you about how something was, you've no experience of anywhere else to compare it to. So I can't be like, well, living in the countryside in Lanarkshire was all right, but I really liked living in the jungle in South Africa. I never had that exotic experience to compare it to.
That's a really good point, because I often think that you speak to people that, for example, living in the west of Scotland, have been brought up in abject poverty, and you often hear them in interviews saying, "What was it like in your childhood?" And they'll say, "It's the only thing we knew." So I don't think it really matters if you're brought up, well, it certainly matters, but it doesn't matter to a certain extent if you're brought up in poverty or wealth, because that's all you know. Yeah. Often you're in your own bubble, and there's...
Yeah, you're in your own bubble. I mean, I was very lucky, had a really nice upbringing, and I suppose that would be the big contrast, would be if you'd had such a tough time, or that you were unhappy. And I definitely was happy. I kind of had a good time. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, you can only I mean, it even happens with music. I mean, you talk to music journalists and they'll be like, they'll ask you, why did you make this record? And you're like, I make records. That's just
It's my job. It's what I like doing.
You don't want to say that because it sounds kind of blasé, but it's the obvious and truthful answer, you know. But yeah, you're right. It's all about perspective, I suppose.
Exactly. When did you first pick up an instrument then? Were you high school, primary school?
Probably start of high school. Probably when I can't remember exactly. I'd probably say 12 or 13, maybe even a wee bit younger. I had guitar lessons from this guy, Harry. He used to teach me and my sister. My sister's a good guitar player as well, actually. And so yeah, I did that. I had kind of quite a few kind of hobbies, and I guess that was the one that I put the most into. You know, you can when you're a wee guy or a wee girl, when you're young, you kind of have all different kind of things you like, but you have to take them forward. You have to kind of really get into it yourself, and I guess music was the one that I got most passionate about.
Is that like supported by the school? You know, were the school quite supportive in it? I feel that at the moment, you know, I've spoke to a lot of musicians on the podcast previously, and it seems that, you know, at the moment they're charging kids to learn instruments in schools. You know, it's not as accessible as it used to be.
No, that's really bad. I've heard a lot about that. The school, our school.
We'll mention Chris while we're here. So
Chris, who's letting us record in his cafe. It's a wonderful cafe, Scran in Denniston. Our school there was two.
Right?
Yeah,
that's a small world.
Did you not know that?
I didn't know that until we arranged for you to come here.
Right.
Played in the same school band.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Huh?
So there was two music teachers at our school, and one of them was a brilliant guy, and the other guy was a wank. yeah. And the guy that I liked was really cool. He was a doctor. He had a PhD. He'd done his PhD in Stockhausen. Like I remember him playing as the Sex Pistols, and was really interested in music. And the other guy, you know what? He was actually a good music teacher. He was quite passionate about teaching the kids. You know, he was. He just, I don't think he liked me very much, but he was a good teacher. So I shouldn't be totally rude about it.
Is that because you were better at music then, or was it not at that stage?
I think I'm better at music than now. No, I think he was just a real traditionalist, and I think he like had the swing band and all that kind of stuff, and didn't really probably understand why the other teacher was pushing all this kind of more. I mean, you say modern. We're talking probably like stuff from the 70s now, but it seemed modern compared to the really old-fashioned music.
That time as well, if it's the Sex Pistols, it's a bit more rebellious than, you know, what you're used to in music class.
Yeah, I'm sure there'd probably be a few of the parents would have been pretty raging if they'd known that like their kids were getting played pretty vacant or whatever. But so yeah, one of them was super supportive and the other one was barely tolerant.
And so would you say that they had an influence on you, or was it kind of, no?
I mean, I remember borrowing a glockenspiel for one of the early Mogwai singles a few years after we'd left. So I mean, that's pretty supportive. Yeah.
I love seeing bands going back to their schools and saying, it's this teacher that made it, because they guys must do this job, you know, day in, day out.
Exactly.
And they never really get any credit for it.
No, they don't. And I mean, I actually say I've got a stepson who's at school, and I've kind of has a typical teenage attitude towards school, and I've said that to him a few times. I'm like, you know what, teachers, like they're not getting paid tons of money for this, and like they're doing it because they want to help you out. They want to make your lives better. I guess when you're a kid, you don't quite see all that. You don't grasp it at all.
It's only in hindsight, I think, when you're going back, and I actually think as well, you know, for you to have the initiative to go back to school and say, can I get that glockenspiel? There must have been something there in it. You thought,
and also after I was at school, I did music at college, a college through near Edinburgh, and I think he played a big part in kind of getting me in, because I think I had pretty bad exam results. But I could play guitar, so I think he kind of had a wee word to say
Can't imagine.
Yeah, I know he's not got brilliant exam results, but he's
a good
passionate
kid.
musician. Yeah, a good kid and a passionate musician. So yeah,
Suppose you kind of always knew that music was going to be the thing for you then?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess, and I think I probably should thank my parents a lot for this, but I never really was overly worried about what I was going to do with my adult life, really. And obviously, I'm very fortunate that I managed to keep making music and kind of make a living from music. I would still be making music even if I didn't.
If it wasn't your career.
I still would be. I mean, but obviously I would have had to work out something else to do.
I seen this week that they're saying that you could have been a boxer if you followed the government training scheme.
Or a referee. That was the other one, a boxer or a referee.
What would you prefer? I'd go for the referee.
I would probably go for the referee as well, just because you don't have to, I don't know, like run around chasing chickens like Rocky and
as long as it doesn't come
get punched in the face. You might get punched in the face as a referee as well, though, I suppose.
Certainly, if you're the Scottish Tory leader and the referee.
I know. I saw him complaining that like folk were calling him a Tory bastard. Honestly, I'm sure I've called him worse.
It's funny that I might get off on a tangent. It is actually
maybe
funny,
you could try not being a Tory bastard as well.
You're putting yourself in these working class environments, you know, in football stadiums and wondering why people are complaining about you being a Tory, you know. You could be running the line, you know, being a linesman at Fir Park in Motherwell, where your party have crippled the community, you know, ripped it apart for years and years, and it's still not recovered, and you're complaining about being called a bastard. But this is not a party political broadcast, but I'm getting off on one.
Yeah. I find it hard to be sympathetic. Let's just say that.
We'll touch on that as well. You know, you says it was really nice that, you know, your parents are really supportive, that your parents didn't put pressure on you to do that, and I think that's especially in the creative industries to see that advert, you know, that's kind of made the headlines in recent weeks about, you know, retrain, reskill. I mean, there's so many people out there that have got something to give, and I think that's a total insult, a slap in the face.
It's a slap in the face to the amount of hours people have put in, and also not to be crass about it, like the amount of money that they make from the creative industries is insane. It makes no sense for them to like let the arse fall out of these industries. These industries provide so much revenue. I mean, the irony of the industries paying for the adverts telling you to go and become a web designer or whatever. I mean, nothing wrong being a web designer, but also where are the jobs for the web designers? Surely the kids, the young people who've been working their whole lives as web designers have got those jobs, not the ballerinas. It's nuts.
I don't know if you've seen the breakdown of the poster. I thought it was brilliant, and it says, you know, this is who made this. So a graphic designer made this, you know, there's a photographer to take the photo, and she's wearing ballerina shoes or whatever it was, you know. That's obviously a fashion designer that's made them, and it's just such an ignorance, isn't it? It's like...
Yeah, it is. They just seem to be... I just think with this Tory government, they've had such a small pool of people that they can hire, because they need to be these kind of like hardcore Brexit devotees. They need to have pretty much no moral compass because they're working for awful people. And then you kind of look at who these people are, and they're just so lacking in empathy and talent. And then these people are meant to be sorting out this massive political upheaval that's going to take place, and you just wonder, I mean, if they're going to look at the relatively small things that they're making a complete mess of, you kind of wonder how badly they can manage to mess up all the big stuff kind of coming down the road. Yeah, it's scary times.
And the creative industries, you know, obviously been at the forefront, in my opinion, one that's been totally left behind and ignored through all this. But how's it affected you personally in Mogwai? I know that you've obviously had the 3 shows next February that you've cancelled already, and it seems like you were one of the first to take that initiative and say...
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people in denial about what the next year's going to look like. I think that Yeah, for us, we've had to cancel some shows. Possibly we're not going to play many shows next year either. We don't really know. We've actually got one booked.
Whereabouts? What was that?
It's not announced. I don't know if I'm actually allowed to say. Somewhere quite nice. I really hope it happens.
Sure.
But our album's finished. So yeah, usually right now we'd be sitting with like half a year of gigs and then a rough plan of what to do in the 6 months afterwards. And that's probably not going to happen. So yeah, it's really changed our plans. And but I'm sure there's people in a lot worse position than us. I mean, we're quite lucky in that we have some other options that we can do. We're still obviously putting out music. We can do soundtrack work, although it kind of seems that industry's having a wee bit of a fright as well. Well, not a wee bit of a fright, like pretty much just getting put on ice until people are ready to go back to the cinemas. But
yeah, I've seen Cineworld announcing closures and stuff as well, and then it's almost like the film producers don't want to put out films because people can't go to cinema, so it looks like if they put it out it could potentially be a flop because nobody went to see it. But
yeah,
I think, I don't know where I stand in this because I get it, totally get it, but I think in these difficult times the only thing that's keeping people going and keeping them positive is new music or new films or something creative, which just goes back to the point and retrain.
Yeah,
it just highlights it.
I guess the issue with the films is quite a complicated one. Is that if they start putting out films like on pay-per-view or straight to streaming services, if people just get used to that, I think that might be the worry. If people just get used to not going to the cinema, and I mean, I love going to the cinema, so I kind of, as much as I'd love to see more new films, I can understand why they're trying to keep the balance of engaging people with that activity, because you wonder when people just get used to not doing something. I actually think that's about football as well. We were chatting a wee bit about football before we started. Like, so many people's Saturday, they go and watch their team every second Saturday, and I really, really hope that once it starts up again, that everyone just starts doing that again, because you know what it's like in life, just with anything in life, once you change your activities. I mean, I even found it with going out for my dinner when everywhere shut. As soon as it all started again, it seemed like you almost had to. It almost felt like something that used to feel really normal started feeling a little bit unusual. I still did it because I'm a total grabber, but when you really change your behaviour, which obviously this pandemic's made everyone do in so many different ways, there's a worry about some things not just clicking back into place. And I think that'll definitely was the case with the cinemas, because they did all open. Yeah. Just a lot of people weren't comfortable. I mean, I didn't go, I have to say. I was planning to, I just never got around to it. But maybe in the back of my mind, I still wasn't totally comfortable and like sitting in a room with loads of people.
The football one's a great point. I was talking to the boys in the media team at Motherwell today, and I was saying, it's a real shame, because a lot of the time these football clubs are the beating heart of the community. It's where families go. It's what you know from a young age. And I think just now, if you're a family and you've not been there for months and months, and you see these other things that are still open that you can go to in a controlled social distance environment, for example, safari parks or zoos, regardless of what you think of them, or other things that you can do as a family that are maybe better value for money. Yeah. You fall away from that habit, and I think often the time sports clubs and football clubs are habitual. It's not necessarily you love it, but it's because it's all you've known. And if you've got this period just now where there's other things out there, you think, maybe actually if I've got 2 kids and
it's expensive.
It's expensive, eh?
Yeah, it is expensive, and that's other than not even a handful, 1 or 2 of my friends who are lucky to have jobs that are kind of thriving for whatever reason. Almost everyone I know is a lot worse off than they were a year ago. And things like gigs, things like football, all that kind of stuff, they're the kind of things that the first things you're going to not do. I'm going out for your food and all that kind of stuff. So Yeah, I think it's going to take quite a bit of readjustment to get back to normal.
You know, back to some sort of normality. When things are back to some sort of normality, when gigs are, you know, there again, it's also going to be hard for musicians because there's going to be so many gigs going on at the same time. You know, everyone's not played gigs in a year or so, maybe even longer. You know, like, do you then have to prioritise what ones you go to? You know, you can't go to a gig Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday because it's expensive. You know,
a lot. Well, in chats I've had with people, that's what a lot of people are saying, especially about next autumn, because that's the estimated guess of when things are going to get normal. And as you said, you can't go out to a gig that's, what's the gig, between 20 and 50 quid. It's a lot of money. You can't go out every single night. So yeah.
What's your thoughts on the kind of like the virtual stuff, or even the ones that I noticed in Newcastle where it's like spaced out? You know, and there's.
I mean, I went to one actually. I went to one at SWG3. Went to see Free Love and Optimal were DJing, and
was that just a few weeks ago?
It was just a few weeks ago, and it was great. It was really good, but as a long-term replacement for a gig, I don't see how it would work, because obviously they had to have table service. Everyone was totally spaced out. It was really safe, but just getting the sheer amount of people that you need to make it make sense. I mean, this is the other thing as well. Like, people were talking a lot about social distancing at gigs and how you could have a gig and it be a quarter full. You can't really have a gig and it be quarter full. You wouldn't be able to cover the costs of the PA and the people working there, and never mind paying the musicians. I mean, I kind of think it kind of needs to get back to normal before, unless it's these kind of different kind of events. The virtual stuff's good. I definitely have watched a few things, and it's something we're looking at doing, but yeah.
It's not a replacement for something like the Hydro, though, is it? You know, I mean, that must be...
it's not the same. I mean, but I mean, then I just can't even imagine it just now. Just can't even imagine cramming into a place with thousands of people. It just seems nuts. It just seems totally nuts. And like, I'm someone who benefits from that. So I mean, if I'm thinking that, then like, I'm sure a lot of people would be very reticent of doing that until it's all under control. You know.
What's it like for yourself? You know, in terms of the band schedule and touring, you know, you mentioned there that at this stage you'd be bringing out the album, then you know, almost like half a year of gigs planned, and you also touched on, you know, you've got a stepson and a family. Is it hard the older you get being away from home, or is it like, I'm looking forward to this, get me a
I can't remember it. Well, we went away to record, so we went away for a couple of weeks. I'm okay. I don't mind going away. I mean, all the rest of the band have kids and stuff as well, so we don't go away for like 3 months at a time or anything. It's kind of, it's usually not for too long.
Has that changed over the years? I think when you were younger, it was a bit like, hey, we're going for it for days, and now
when we started the band, we were all living with our parents, so it was like a holiday, going away. It was like totally like, it's a totally different thing. But no, I still love playing. And one thing I would say is, as the band became more established, you play later at night, so quite often you get no sleep, so you'll be coming off stage at like 1, 2 in the morning, and then you're getting a plane at 7, 8 in the morning to get to the next place. So I don't miss that. But
where were you recording there? Where were you? Was it for 000 stuff?
No, we've done a new record.
Yeah.
Just finished a new record. We recorded at a place in Worcestershire.
Right, okay.
Just past Birmingham. Sure. It was nice.
How do you select that? What's your process?
Well, that was another thing that changed the plans. We were meant to be recording upstate New York, which is where we did our last record, and we did some of the really old ones. But yeah, obviously you can't go to America. So Tony, we've got a studio here in Glasgow with Tony Dugan, who's an engineer, and the record was produced by a guy, Dave Fridman, who's made a few of our records. Yes. And so I guess Tony and Dave just found somewhere that...
What's it like going back to Dave at like 15, 20 years on? Because he's almost been there for the start, maybe the second or third album, was it?
Yeah, it's good. I like the fact that with the band we've got a few people that we've kind of worked with, maybe not all the time, but quite a lot, and huge different spaces of time. When we did the last record with Dave, it had been 16 years or something in between, and he was laughing at us.
Is it like old pals back together?
It's old pals, but I mean, we were just such wee guys, and now we're pretty grown up. I think he kind of was quite amused by the differences. The fact we started eating vegetables, and I think all we ate before was chicken wings, and I don't know, it's disgusting. But yeah, it's good. It's good. I like having people you worked with over a long time. It's good to see how people change a wee bit, and most people don't really at all. You know, maybe you change your pace, but you don't actually change as a person.
You know, it must be a privilege as well as a musician. You know, we've touched on it at the start, doing something that you love, but having this option of going to places like New York to record, and I mean, you've got a massive fan base in America now, don't you?
Yeah, we do quite well. I'm definitely kind of really appreciative of that, and where the studio is isn't actually that great. I have to say, it's kind of a wee bit. It's a wee bit mad. There's like a lot of Trump signs and like folk with skinned deers out of the porch and all that. You kind of a wee bit scared of the neighbours, but no, it's good. I would have liked to have gone back. That's one thing that, and we also right at the first lockdown, we were meant to be playing a festival in Mexico, and I was still totally up for it because I'm totally in denial of everything, and like the rest of them like, I don't think we should go, and they were totally right. We should never have went. But I remember it was kind of funny on the 1 week. My main concern was that I wouldn't be able to find anywhere to like watch the Celtic Rangers game in Mexico. And then like a week later I was like, imagine thinking we were going to get to Mexico, and then the football game got cancelled as well. The whole everything just got totally binned.
That's funny. Where's the most exotic place you've played in? Is there any memories that you think, oh, that was special, you know? Obviously, you've millions of them over the years, but is there anything that jumps out?
I mean, we've played in exotic countries. We've played in like Thailand and Indonesia, and these places are just amazing. You can't believe that anyone even knows who we are out there. But I guess probably the most things that, when I think about gigs, I think about like the first time we played the Barrowlands here, because I'd been obviously a teenager going to gigs at the Barrowlands, and such a big deal. And then like when we played like the Royal Albert Hall, it's just,
that's crazy, isn't it?
It's totally crazy. Yeah, so I mean, we're really lucky. We've played a lot of places that are pretty special.
I was speaking to Chris in the cafe before he came in, and he was saying it was at one of your early Barrowlands shows, and he's were all skateboarding through the back.
Yeah, we would have been. Yeah, we totally would. I remember actually like when we went on tour with the Manic Street Preachers. On the first day, I guess they have mad fans. That's one of their things.
I think they're my favourite Welsh socialists, but there's not a great deal to choose from.
Oh, sure, I bet there's a few. I bet the Super Furrianos are big socialists too. But I remember we go out into the venue, and it was huge, big venue, much bigger than we'd ever played. And I just like was so excited. I had my skateboard and just started like bombing it up and down this place. And like their bouncer was this like ex-SAS guy, and like could just see him just like, oh my, you can't be here doing that. And he like had no idea we were the support band. It's quite funny.
Do you take your board everywhere?
Usually. Sometimes it never comes out of my bag, but yeah, it's quite good. If you've got jet lag and you're in somewhere nice, it's quite a good.
Do you ever skate your own decks? I've seen that you've brought out a Mogwai set.
No, I didn't. No, I've got them. They're on my wall.
Aye, that's amazing. I think that's really nice. You know, you put them up for sale, eh?
Yeah, we did it with a skate shop in Edinburgh, Focus.
All right, yeah.
Yeah.
Is all the band into skating, or is it just yourself? Or?
Yeah, it's just me.
Aye.
I think that a few of them had boards years ago, but yeah, I'm the only one that persevered.
Do you think they ever say, Stuart, what are you doing with this? We're not bringing out skateboards, what's that all about?
No, they weren't bored about that. I think they're probably more bored about me breaking my arm, to be totally honest. Sometimes I'll like pull out and I can just see their eyes rolling, like, oh God.
That would be an absolute disaster. I can imagine it's the other end of the world.
Thankfully, I'm 44 years old. I'm not going to get high enough off the ground to break my arm. That's my logic. That's my logic there.
I feel as if the older you get, I mean, I used to skate a wee bit when I was younger, not as much anymore, but it's almost like before you were invincible, and now the older you get, you're like, oh, I really shouldn't be doing that.
You know your limits, Phil. I try and know my limits.
You came here on your bike as well. It seems like there's no stopping you.
Yeah, well, I got a bike about a year ago, and it's actually like totally blown my mind. I had no idea that it's usually quicker to get places in the city on a bike than it is driving.
I wasn't sure if that was a lockdown purchase. It was one of these ones that Giltway bought a bike at the start of lockdown, went out loads, and it's slowing up as we get closer to the winter. I have to admit.
Yeah, my wife got a lockdown bike, but I already had it. Although that's a replacement. Mine actually got nicked. It's quite annoying.
Did you find out who it was? No.
No. There's a CCTV right outside my flat as well, and like it must have just been pointing just slightly the wrong way. But
You just wonder who these folk are that do that. It's like, who are they selling them?
I think it's a big criminal enterprise. I mean, when I was looking for my stolen bike, there's a Facebook group, and the amount of bikes, and people know what ones to get as well.
Right.
Some of those bikes are worth a lot of money too, you know. So like these people kind of, I mean, my bike's not a really well known make, so I guess they probably thought it was fancier than it really is.
They got it home. They're like, oh, what about this one?
I mean, it's a good bike, but like, you see some bikes that are worth thousands and thousands of pounds, you know.
You've not been quiet certainly over the years with your political views.
Yeah.
And has that ever come into play when you're thinking about the band? You know, you're obviously going all over the world and flying the flag for Scotland, and you know, you've been outspoken on independence. I'm very much pro-independence as well. But has there ever been a time where you thought, I should maybe rein this in case people?
I mean, the rest of the band all agree.
Yeah.
I think if the rest of the band weren't also pro-independence, unless some of them have had some massive change of heart, which seems very unlikely, I would maybe not be quite so vocal about it, because I wouldn't want
to tarnish theirs,
or just people to presume everyone's views because of my views. But no, they're all really pro-independence as well.
I think it's hard not to be in today's world.
I mean, well, they're running out of people who are not pro-independence. So yeah.
I think that's maybe easier in the creative industries. I feel as if, you know, you look at musicians and, you know, a lot of musicians from Scotland are very open in their political views. I don't know if you're maybe working in a different line of work, if it's maybe a bit harder to be outspoken, or...
I think if you're... I don't know if that sounds pretentious, but I think if your daily activity is to make something new, then the idea of a change like that doesn't seem that big a thing. Whereas I think if maybe people have different backgrounds, or maybe are very kind of used to things being a certain way, that a big change like that seems really daunting.
Of course.
It's kind of weird with Brexit as well, because I was really anti-Brexit, and but I was quite surprised that people went for that, because it seems so obviously detrimental. It's another big kind of can of worms, but I mean,
I wonder if that's because you know, your job takes you all over the world. You know, it takes you to Europe. You mix with these people on a weekly, monthly, daily basis. You know, you see the value of being European.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're maybe working in an office in London in a bank, for example, you don't see that. Or if even if you're in a building site in Glasgow, you know, you might not see that integration. You know that.
I mean, I mean, there was two things with Brexit. One, it just, in an industry that travels all over and music's obviously completely international, kind of having frictionless trade seems such an obviously good thing. But also, I kind of could see the kind of racist undercurrent of what was pushing it. I'm not saying everyone who was into it feels like that, but there was that dark thing just definitely bubbling under, and I definitely feel that racism's more prevalent since Brexit, and people are more comfortable being prejudiced against people from different countries. I mean, the Tories are absolutely brazen just now. Some of these things are like just so anti-immigrant and anti-refugee, and I don't know,
it's almost they've took these what would be seen as extreme views and brought it very much into the mainstream. It's, you know, they played from that UKIP playbook, you know, and it's now mainstream politics. And again, I think a lot of it, and I think racism's terrible, and I think a lot of it is down to education, but also down to naivety or people not being exposed to multiculturalism as well. And I think a lot of it does come back to your experience. If you guys are playing across the world and meeting people from different cultures, you're going to understand these cultures and you're going to embrace them and want to learn more about them. If you're kind of if you're living your whole life in England and you don't know any different, and you're constantly told that the person from Pakistan or India is coming or Poland's taking your job, like you should know better than that. But partly it's maybe because they're just not clued up.
Well,
I'm not making excuses for it in any.
I mean, I think that is true, but I think what is also true is that certain people have a certain attitude of Britain, and some people still think Britain is the centre of the world, and they think it's fine for them to go and live in Spain, but they don't want someone from Spain to come here.
They're an expat,
and they don't see the hypocrisy and the stupidity of that. Like if they want to go and live in Spain, that's amazing. If someone from Spain wants to come live here, that's also great. To be honest, I think like culturally they are probably doing us a favour more than we're doing them a favour, to be totally honest. But yeah, I don't know.
I find it hard to put my finger on how are people, so brainwashed by this. I feel that post 2014 in Scotland there was almost an awakening for people. It was, people weren't as politically engaged before that to a certain degree, and afterwards, people of younger generations are totally buying into it. You see that in the polls just now, where the younger generations are really engaged with the independence movement, and the older generations aren't as much so. And I wonder if that's yet to come to, the rest of Britain.
I think a lot of it's to do with information, and I think that older generation are much more inclined to believe messaging from like the BBC and all that kind of stuff. So it's a weird one because I generally think it's quite good to be skeptical, but then you look at it's kind of like it's almost like a crying wolf situation. Look at people that don't believe things about the pandemic. So like
it's went full circle, hasn't it?
Yeah, and you look at America where like they've basically turned news into an entertainment kind of situation, and you've got the president coming out with properly bonkers conspiracy theories and it not even really being a big story. And I worry about that a bit, but I think people in Scotland are maybe a bit more canny.
Yeah, that's the best word for it.
I think they're maybe a wee bit more canny to about who to believe and who not to believe. But I think information and media it's the biggest kind of battlefield in society at the moment. Like there's so much misinformation and so much messaging, and especially online. We're kind of having a bit of a laugh about the Tories and they're telling the ballerina to become a web designer, but you kind of think about what they're actually doing. Like they're kind of just picking away at people's kind of consciousness, and it's anti-free thought. It's anti-individualism and it's anti-self-expression. And I mean, I'm really not fond of those people, but they're not daft. They're doing it on purpose. There's
more to it.
There's always more to it. There's kind of some pretty smart people behind the scenes.
You mentioned Trump there, and I think he's someone that's used this platform as a celebrity in America to really push his own brand and get to the top and push his own divisive views. And I suppose on a much lesser scale, you guys goes back to the question about pushing your own views. You've obviously got a platform as well, and I feel that you use it in a way that you don't try and indoctrinate people. You put the information out there. But I think it's important to how do you use these platforms? How do you know what's the right thing to say, and how do you not? Is there ever sometimes you think, I wish I could say that, but maybe I shouldn't really? Or
I mean, from me personally, I don't really worry about it at all. I think with the band we kind of, I don't know. I mean, I almost feel I think it's so important that Donald Trump loses the election. I kind of almost like might see if the boys like just remind everyone on the day, like, please don't go and vote for this nut job, just because you can see the damage it's doing to the psyche of the entire planet, as well as obviously all the people who live in America, all that kind of stuff. But it kind of looks like his tease out
brave,
anyway.
You know, Stuart, I think that's brave that you would say that, because you do have fans in America, you know, might be Trump voters, you know.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, I don't know. If you were a Trump voter and you kind of got put off by people in the arts not liking Trump, you'd have pretty. I mean, you'd just be sitting with your one Kid Rock CD or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I don't think you'd. I don't think you'd really be able to like.
It's funny.
Roseanne, you'd be watching old episodes of Roseanne and listening to Kid Rock. They're pretty miserable existence.
I watched in the news the other night. It was one of his rallies, and there were people outside like trying to make up raps for Trump. It was like rap music for Trump, and I thought that's totally everything that he is against. There,
yeah.
It's madness, absolute madness.
It's a shitstorm.
What's the future hold then? You're sitting in front of me. We've criticised everything today, but I suppose
I don't know. I mean, I'm generally quite a positive person. I kind of think once we kind of get out the other side of all of this we're going through, I'm quite hopeful for the future, to be honest. I genuinely think in the next 10 years Scotland will probably be an independent country, which I think will probably be a good thing for England as well, you know.
I think that's always, thinking off a tangent, always been a massive, you know, selling point for me. It's not like we're going on our own. It's like you're leading the way for down south to be a bit more democratic and, you know, spread it out a bit. You know, give the north a bit more power. You know.
Exactly.
We should be leading the way rather than breaking away. You know.
Yeah, that's how I see it, and I think that's a positive. Hopefully, there'll be a lot of readjustment, but I kind of hope things in the arts kind of come back to something like, and maybe a better version of what had been there before. You know, and I think this is. I think what the pandemic's really made people reassess what they value. I've noticed that in music, definitely, like people really kind of gravitating towards Bandcamp, which pays the musicians obviously a lot better than any of the streaming ways of listening to music. So,
and you've done a release this year, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you know it was on Bandcamp exclusively at first, and half the money went to NHS charities and half went to. Is it musical charity as well?
Help musicians.
You know, that's fantastic. You know,
it was good. It was good, and we managed to make some good causes a decent amount of money. And I think people want to pay for music. I think they've just kind of made it hard for people to do so.
I think to a certain extent on that point, if you want to buy a band's album, or if you want to, you know, who really plays CDs anymore?
I know.
And only a certain amount of people have got the record players. So if you're buying a vinyl, it's almost like the only place you can listen to music is online, and it is harder to purchase it in that respect.
Yeah, and it's kind of generational too, because I think young people don't see music as something that you should pay for, but they're also smart. I think young people are really smart. I think that's something that people don't talk about that much. I know people are kind of snotty about millennials, but there's a lot of smart people out there, and I think that they're starting to realise the value of art. And I think that the lockdown made people, obviously not the Tories, but made normal, reasonable people value people who create things, because it's helped everyone get by, and they've not been so busy that they don't notice it, you know.
And Mogwai, when we're back up and running, obviously you've cancelled the February shows, but will they be on at a later date? Or?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll as soon as we can play gigs, we'll be playing gigs, and we've got new music.
The album coming out as well.
Yeah, we've got new music coming out really soon, so yeah, I'm pretty.
It's a lot to look forward to. I mean, we're all doing so, but there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, no, I think things will be okay.
Stuart, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so
all
much
right,
for your time.
Cheers, chaps.
Thanks very much to everyone that's listened to this episode of the podcast. If you've not, please like and subscribe and check out some older episodes. Cheers.